Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Ray Esports Club Racing League. This is round number 3 for group number 1, coming to you tonight from VIR. My name is Maunz. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Adam Thompson, and in the virtual production hall we have Joshua Wilkie. First up, as always, we have the amazing Mazdas, where we're expecting a rather textbook race here tonight. Good overtaking opportunities, some really tough corners, and a sense of familiarity that is going to be prevalent for both the drivers and us on the broadcast. Adam, if there's a combination on the iRacing platform that is essentially iRacing's bread and butter, it really is Mazdas around VIR. What do you think?
It really is. It's going to be drafty. I mean, we all know how good it's going to be. It's going to be a great time, I think, for everybody out there. Keep an eye out for the back straight, aptly named back straight. It's going to be, that's where all of the overtakes are probably going to come, especially going into roller coaster. The snake is going to be fun as well. South Bend, obviously they got rid of the oak tree, but we might see a couple people run off around turn 10, but I am super duper excited for whatever happens here, Ron. Got a bunch of angry Miatas. They kind of sound like weed eaters out there, but I'm here for it.
Well, that they certainly do. The Mazdas have a very unique engine tone to them, to say the very least. They're just unique cars on the iRacing platform. Nothing really drives like one of the Mazdas that we have here, whether it be some of the Mazda MX-5 Cup cars that we're seeing Michelle Squires in the number 75 car driving right now, or whether it be some of the older spec Miata Mazdas that are running a little bit farther down the running order as it stands at the moment, coming up to 6 minutes into this 15-minute long qualifying session. To anyone who's tuned into this series not yet before, here's the deal for how things are going to work tonight. Currently in the midst of a 15-minute long solo qualifying session where these drivers have 4 laps to try and get the job done. There is going to set the grid for a 30-minute long race for the Mazdas. 2 separate classes, so 2 separate trophies to give out, and then we'll re-rack it and run the second race of the evening. That's going to be running in some TCR machinery at this very racetrack with 10 more minutes on the board for a 40-minute long race. But a fantastic evening of racing action set to get things underway in just a couple of moments time around this absolutely brilliant racetrack. Historic in nature, but just brilliant to drive as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, it is just a blast. I was talking to another Michelle that is actually should be running tonight somewhere around there. I think Michelle Lynn's going to be hopefully, oh, there she is down in 19th place, and I was talking to her about VIR and how much fun it is to run in just about everything. And of course, we started talking about the Vs, but the Miatas are pretty close to the Vs. They're a little heavier. They don't like to handle as well. The back end does not. It just, imagine a Formula V and then imagine the weight coming around the back end of these Miatas. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to say the least. But man, if we can tame these Miatas, I think we are in for an absolute blast. And I'm sure the drivers have been looking forward to this circuit, and I'm looking forward to covering it up here with you.
Oh, well, we've got some fantastic racetracks that we're going to be visiting here for group number 1 throughout this season. Already 3 races on the board. Well, 2 races on the board thus far. Gonna be putting a 3rd on the board tonight, but some wonderful racetracks we visited thus far. Road Atlanta and Bathurst. VIR, of course, hosting the races here tonight. Gonna be running at Daytona in about a month's time on January the 22nd. Then we're going to bring the season to a close with 3 last races at Laguna Seca, Sebring, and Long Beach. That's going to be, of all the tracks to visit in TCR and Mazda machinery, I have a feeling that of the tracks, Long Beach is probably going to be the most terrifying, even from our perspective in the commentary booth, Adam.
Yeah, it really will be, and it's just going to be, you know, I mean, let's be honest. That's what I'm excited to be up here, Ron, and I'm sure you are too. Have you tried it? Have you tried to do it in the Miatas before?
Alrighty, I will share a little bit of Ray Esports lore. So earlier on this year, right before the start of the final season of the old Tuesday night Ray Esports series, there was a preseason Thunder race, and it was kind of preparing the drivers for a transition, because for as long as I'd been part of that Tuesday series, the global MX-5s that we're seeing Miles Crabbe drive right now, currently on the provisional polls that stands at the moment, the global MX-5 Cup cars used to be the Mazda of choice. Then for that final season, season 12, that happened from March to June of this year, they switched over to the spec Miata machinery that we also see in this race. Very different cars, very different in the way that they drive. At that point in time, the old spec Miata was on the older tire model, didn't have the same damage as the global MX-5 Cup car. Also had a stick shift, so we saw some drivers money shifting it heading through there. But in this preseason Thunder race, I chose to drive the spec Miata car just to give myself a quick little basis of information before the season kicked off 1 week after that. And I remember we were running around Lime Rock Park, went down into turn number 1, downshifted, and the bracket that holds my H-pattern shifter on my rig, which is made out of fantastic 100% pure Schwangland Chinese aluminum. Just I felt the shifter fall down with me as I was trying to go down a gear. So I do have some experience running the spec Miatas. Having to do with paddle shifters is not a good experience. It's like trying to pick up antimatter with chopsticks. You can't really do it. But I do have some experience driving the spec Miatas. Not quick experience though.
Oh, well, you know, I mean, you know what, Ron? I guess we all find our talents, right? And clearly you found it up here. So even though you don't know how to shift a car, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Crabbe up there in first place right now in qualifying, doing an absolute massive job here, actually beating Michelle Squarick, which is, hey, let's be honest, Ron, it's pretty impressive.
Oh, it absolutely is impressive. Miles Crabbe, a pretty quick SCCA driver in his own regard, and look at Justice, another driver from the SCCA taking the rally line, coming out of Hog Pen at turn number 17. I was gonna say, if he saved that first slide, that would have been fantastic. He did save it, but then took a quick little trip, a lawn cutting adventure on the outside of turn 17, currently slotted 10th at the moment in this qualifying session. But Miles Crabbe doing what he has shown some flashes of in the past this season. However, in the Mazdas at least, it has been the story of dominance for Michelle Squarick. Kicked this season off at Road Atlanta with a victory, and then continued her form with another checkered flag at Bathurst about a month ago. So Squarick, who does race some Mazda machinery in real life, looking to try and keep that form rolling, and as it stands at the moment, probably not going to be the pole as we are getting to the end of this qualifying session. These drivers are completing their final laps, but a front row start, still not going to turn that down one bit.
Oh, absolutely not. And especially around here, Ron, maybe second place, probably not even second place is where you want to be. I want to be where Miles Brown is right now, or Casey Knight, maybe even Kyle Robertson back there on the third row, especially coming up to the back straight. And there is a massive front straight as well, depending on when these drivers decide to go. I would assume that if Miles Crabbe stays in the lead, he's going to wait till the last possible moment, till the green flag drops to hit the gas. But I don't know if that's even going to help him going into turn 1.
I think turn 1, just generally speaking, regardless of where you find yourself come time for the drop of the green flag in the not-too-distant future. I just realized what I said a couple of moments ago. Oh, boy, I'm waiting for the jokes.
Take a drink, everyone.
Yep, there we go. I was expecting that. But heading off into turn 1, that's going to be terrifying, even from our perspective in the commentary booth. We have got a stacked field of race cars. I believe there's 31 in the session, 29 to set a time right now, but still 29 race cars, regardless of what number it is, whether it's 29, 28, 31, or 30, regardless, it's still going to be a wild ride for these racers heading off into turn number 1. Horseshoe Bend, it's such a tricky corner, and that grass runoff on the outside, it feels like you're driving off a cliff if you go off around that section. So these drivers going to exercise a little bit of patience heading off into there. You want to strike while the iron's hot, though. So as much as you can't win the race on lap 1, you sure can lose it, and you can lose it either going for a move that's a little bit too on the overly opportunistic side, or you're just going to take it way too careful and just get chucked out of the way by your competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, going into turn 1, Horseshoe Bend, like you mentioned, especially when you're sitting in the draft, Ron, you mentioned everyone trying to be careful and cautious, but when you're in the draft, it's a lot harder to judge a braking zone because you are the closing rate is so much quicker, probably 10 to 12 miles an hour faster. if you're in America, which I don't know how you convert that into kilometers, and I'm not even going to try because I didn't finish college. But it's one of those things that you're just going to have to be very, very careful of. Check your braking points because, like I said, there are a few points of contention around this track. Horseshoe, South Bend, Oak Tree, and Roller Coaster. Those are the three points where you're really going to have to watch out what's going on in front of you unless you want to end up, man, I can't even remember. What did you say? I can't even remember what you said. I can't pull out a Ron Maunz quote. I don't even remember them. You've got too many.
Yeah, it's a very odd encyclopedia that I have. I may add one to the list on the subject of converting miles to kilometers. It's a good thing that I'm on the broadcast because I don't really toot my own horn when it comes to this sort of stuff, but my high school career was very successful. I graduated back in 2023 in the top 99% of my class. So I can assure you that in terms of converting miles to kilometers an hour, I can assure you that Google is my friend. But coming to the end of this qualifying session right now, only 5 seconds left to go. Looking good for Crab and Squirick to lock out that front row. Covered by practically nothing as well. And considering that we are in an open, not an open qualifying session, a closed qualifying session, the complete opposite of what I want to say. As soon as we hit that 15 minutes, bang, we are done and ready to get things up and rolling from this race. Moving over to the session, which I gotta say, very thankful that the old Club Mazda cars, the Spec Miatas, do not have rain compatibility. Otherwise, that would be a truly terrifying prospect. But I think we'll get that starting grid loaded up in the not too distant future. And it's going to be Miles Crabbe starting this race from the pole in the 130 car, the 131 car. My apologies. Got to have that extra one in there for clarity's sakes. Setting a 2-minute 7.190 in the process. Michelle Squire going to join him on the front row. Then we have another Miles, that being Miles with a Y. Miles Brown in the 333 car, going to be starting fittingly in third. Casey Knight going to be starting in the fourth position. Kyle Robertson in fifth. Andy Smith in sixth. Justin Huffman in the 223 car, going to be starting this race in seventh. Daniel Salmon going to be starting in eighth. I gotta say, Huffman, usually it's either going to be Huffman, Justin Huffman, or his son Jameson. Every single time I see a Huffman in a race that I'm commentating on, I can never be too sure. But anyways, TJ Yankee going to be starting in ninth. That's going to be a real-life spec racer, Ford racer who's seen some pretty good results throughout this season. Joshua Justice riding at your top 10.
We've got Randy Marino starting in 11th with Aaron Bray starting in 12th place. And these are all the global Mazdas, mind you. Jacob Schilling starting in 13th with Wayne Buttermore starting in 14th. And then we get to your H-pattern shifter Mazdas here, Ron. In 15th is going to be Skip Brock Jr. with Ryan Campbell in 16th. Matt Thompson in 17th with Chuck Labano in 18th. Seth Spolman 19th with Corey Heffron rounding out your top 20. Edgar Santinelli in 21st. Michael Snow in 22nd. Andrew Love in 23rd. Michelle Lynn sitting in 24th place.
And Michelle, a Philadelphia native, much like myself, so gotta put aside any sort of bias that I have seeing a fellow Philadelphian race.
Of course.
No broadcasters sort of jinx at all to
Never.
her. Actually, I say that I may have just jinxed her. Scott Russell gonna be starting in 25th. Mike Key gonna be starting in 26th. Gotta try and go through the starting grid, considering we are starting this formation lap. I don't want to give out any more jinxes. Jason Grider gonna be starting in 27th. Joseph Tarantino in 28th. Joaquin Effinger in the 700 car in 29th. John A. Casey gonna be starting in 30th, and Ken Estep running at your 31 cars that are going to be taking to the green in a couple of moments' time. Got that brand new BMW pace car leading the field around.
Ooh, she's
heading
pretty.
down. Yeah, that is a very pretty looking race car. Pretty looking pace car. There we go. So, I mean, if it, you know, if this race had yellow flags enabled and there was a little bit of attrition. Good Lord, I'm just going to completely bail out on that line. Ready to get things up and rolling from the third race of this season for the Group 1 racers. The Mazdas always put on a good show, and here around VIR, these drivers have some experience running around here. I'm sure they're going to put on a really good show indeed. The green flag's down, the drivers are on their way, looking at a very good start start for Miles Crab. He's got to try and lead them as best as he can heading off into turn number 1, but still got braking zone to negotiate before then. Around the outside is going to be Michelle Squirek in that number 75 car. She's had a clean sweep of the Mazda races thus far. Will she be able to get it done? Not close enough. Justice running wide heading through turn number 1. Meanwhile, looking at some side-by-side racing a little bit farther down the pack. That's some spec Miata drivers going side-by-side as Squirek having to withstand a challenge from Miles Brown to remain in P2. At this point in time, these racers still negotiating this first lap as closely as they possibly can. Heading through Snake right now, you can see the side-by-side racing. There's a dangerous spot to try and go side-by-side around, despite the fact that iRacing reworked the grass physics not terribly long ago.
Justice.
That is still tense. Look at Justice trying to make it 3 wide in that small little flat outlet between Snake and turn number 7. Is he going to try and go for the 2-for-1 deal? He's now side-by-side.
Oh,
that's a
goodness
33
gracious.
car of Matt
Joshua
Thompson getting
Justice.
shuffled out. Josh Justice, well done.
Unbelievable by Joshua. Justice
Oh,
has we've got
crap.
a spinner back there.
Miles Crab going for a spin coming out of Oak Tree. That's going to be disastrous for a pole man, and he wasn't alone in that incident. He
What is
collected
happening?
Miles Brown, and that's a big incident. Heading down that back straightaway. You can see 3 cars involved. The cars getting center punched. Body parts flying all over the place. The body parts from the race car, not from the drivers. That'd be even worse if it was from the drivers. Michelle Squirek has now inherited the lead as a result of all that chaos. Andy Smith slipping into P2. Not sure where the driver of the number 9 car came from. Oh, Casey Knight nearly going so deep off into turn number 14 of roller coaster. Nearly ended up in West Virginia, but she's still going to find herself in 4th. Salmon getting a move done on her to slip his way up into 3rd, but a lot of chaos as the field came out of Oak Tree a couple of moments ago. You could see that scrap heap, the junkyard of Mazda race cars down pit lane. Adam, I think we have a whole lot of replays to take a look at because that was major.
We do, real quickly, but right before we go to replay, I want to mention Skip Brock in the Legacy car, basically up 9 positions, running in 6th place. So great job to Skip. Was able to get rid of that carnage that I think we're about to go, or get away from that carnage that I think we're about to watch.
Skip Brock Jr., a very fast racer, but we're going to take a look at the replays to see this drama involving Miles Crab in the 131 car. That was coming out of Oak Tree. Let's take a look at it.
I did mention Oak Tree, 75 up the inside. He just gets loose by himself, and there is nothing anybody can do, but he does okay. But the problem is, I think people start dodging and ducking. Oh, that's what happened. That's what happened, Ryan.
Oh, and you can see that was a huge collision. I am shocked that no more cars got involved in all that. Gonna follow Miles Brown's perspective in all of this. Lots of tough moments from this. Some good race cars getting torn up.
So here's what I think is probably happening. Miles Brown may have had a steering issue that he didn't know if it was steering or running through the grass, but it's just unfortunate that he couldn't have gone one way or the other from that tire barrier. Let's take a listen in, Ron.
Yeah, listen into this moment. Bang! Hits the side of Crab. You can already see that hood is wrinkled up really badly. Looks like a discarded chip bag. Then into the pit attenuator. Had no idea where he was going, and then 3 more cars actually collected in that. Back to live action and following Skip Brock Jr. Still running in the 6th position overall. Top of the spec Mazda racers. I gotta say, that spec Miata category has been incredible to follow all throughout the season, Adam. We've already had we've already had 2 separate winners in that class as Randy Marino coming down pit lane. That looked very sketchy. Not entirely sure if that was his own decision either. It looked like he was mega sideways coming out of Hog Pen.
Well, I mean, this could be a very interesting strategy for Randy Marino. Let's see how it works out. But we got to talk about Michelle Squirek here. Obviously, up there at the front, was able to get around and away from all the carnage there. Started in 2nd place, but now sitting in first place. 3 full seconds ahead on lap 3. And the problem is, Andy Smith behind her has absolutely no help to be able to get back up to the back of her. So Casey Knight and Daniel Salmon back there are the closest drivers that might be able to get some draft help going here to get back up to Squirick. But, I mean, she's checking out 3.5 seconds and half a lap, Ron.
I gotta say as well, not entirely sure if we are going to see teamwork making the dream work, pseudo-teamwork making the dream work between Knight and Salmon to make their way up the running order and maybe put up a challenge to the likes of Smith and Squirick. There's two reasons for that. Firstly, that gap in Mazdas is, I wouldn't say insurmountable, but it's pretty close to it. That is a major gap that they would have to try and overcome. And plus another thing as well, Casey Knight and Michelle Squirick, they're roommates. They've been very close confidants in terms of the racing. They usually work together to try and work on setups. And they usually talk about their racing and helping out each other and all that. But they also moved in together not terribly long ago. We want to congratulate Casey Knight on the moves. I remember them mentioning that in an interview on one of these broadcasts not terribly long ago, so congratulations to those two to moving in together. Two racers certainly putting on a pretty good drive at the moment, running P1 and P3. Let's see if there's any way in the book for them to make it a 1-2, but looking at this pack involving Thompson, Labano, and Campbell. Now, I've got a story about all three of these racers. Campbell less so. I've seen him run occasionally throughout this season, but he hasn't really been too much of a standout, if I'm being, that sounds a little bit mean. I apologize to Campbell, but he's been he's been running in this series, but there hasn't been any like really standout, flashy and flamboyant moments from Campbell. He's just been running around the track and picking off the positions when he can to finish first. You have to finish. I've read that in many fortune cookies before, but he is still a pretty good driver in this series, as we may see some side-by-side racing here involving Kyle Robertson possibly going to start to battle with Seth Spolman. Spolman kicked this season off with a victory in the Spec Miata category, and the other driver to win a race is Matt Thompson, currently running in 8th side-by-side now with Robertson and Spolman. Spolman on that outside line. The inside line. Here we go, heading off through left hook. Now, is it going to be a successful charge from Robertson? It's not going to be for now.
Now, let me tell you something, Ron. I have seen a pass now through left hook, right? GT3s, I tried to make that exact same pass in officials, and yeah, I wanted to go crawl in a hole for about a week from the stuff that guy said to me after trying to do that. So I now know that there can be a pass made in left hook that you cannot do in the GT3s, but that was still a great overtake. But now, again, they cannot let the drivers ahead of them get away because this is such a drafty track. This is going to be pretty interesting. Like we were looking up there just a little while ago, Labano, Thompson, and Campbell working together, and look at what they've done. They're starting to gap just a little bit. Mr. Heffron back there in 11th. Just kidding.
You can see. Well, at this point in time, it's still a small gap. It's 2 car lengths. We'll count that as a big gap, considering that Thompson, Labano, and Campbell are nose to tail, bump drafting up a storm, heading down that back straightaway. And that right there was a money shift from Heffron. Yep, that right there was Heffron blowing a motor, and you can see him trying to weave. That's the money shift that I mentioned, the all too common money shift in the Spec Miatas. I just heard the unmistakable sound of metal snapping and smoke going up in the air. Heffron blowing up his chances to do well in this race.
Yeah, that was a good one. I'm not even going to try to follow that one up there, Ron. But yeah, we're looking back here at Michelle Squirick again. She is now 5 seconds ahead with Andy Smith sitting back in 2nd, Casey Knight sitting back in 3rd, Daniel Salmon still sitting back there in 4th, Joshua Justice about 4 seconds behind Daniel in 5th place. So those are your top 5 right now. Justice really has no help right now, though, and that's the problem. Like there's really not much for these drivers to be able to do, especially with Salmon and Knight working together. But it looks like Smith may have had an issue because I think Knight and Smith are battling.
Yeah, I think it's been a mix of many things going on. Andy Smith, the Californian behind the wheel of the number 9 car, now going to drop down to 3rd. I think he's lost out a little bit of time, may have had some off-track excursions, and we may be able to pull up some replays to see some of the rally action that Andy Smith has had as of late. That dropped him into the crutches of Casey Knight. Meanwhile, Casey Knight was starting to pull away from Salmon, so let's take a look at this now. Smith running wide coming out of NASCAR Bend, and let's see it through left hook now. little bit of sideways action. I could hear those tires screaming in agony, heading all through left hook, and you could see Knight trying to get that move done side by side, heading through the snake section there. The 210 car and the 9 side by side under the bridge, about to head their way off into turn number 7. Side by side racing into this section usually isn't going to fly. Smith backing out of it to drop his way down into third. Yep,
absolutely. So now Casey Knight can try to set sail and get up to Michelle Squarick, but I mean, Ron, I cannot help but keep mentioning Michelle's name. I mean, this is just crazy. I'm looking at this gap growing and growing and growing. And another Michelle I want to mention real quick, with a lot of the biggest movers here, Michelle Lynn up 9 positions, now up into 15th place. Joseph Tarantino back there up 9 positions in 19th. John Casey, though, is up there he's got 12 positions he's gained since the start of this race.
I just got jump scared. I thought that Mike Snow was going to come in for the kill on Michelle Lynn. I just saw it was like an optical illusion as they head their way off through Roller Coaster Bend a couple of moments ago. I thought the instant commentator's jinx had hit there, Adam. I'm not going to lie. But still, Michelle running in 15th as it stands at the moment. We go back to the pandemonium here. Kyle Robertson still trying to make up some moves. He's now got himself involved in this battle that we've been keeping tabs on all throughout this race between Matt Thompson, Chuck Labano, and Campbell. But right now, Robertson acting as a little bit of a pick in that battle. Has gotten the move done on Campbell, but still trying to dispatch of Labano and Thompson. Gotta say that, though, Robertson having to withstand a challenge from Campbell right now. So despite the fact he's running in the Global MX-5 car, still struggling a little bit in terms of pace and all of that stuff at the moment. So we'll see if he can get some moves done, some decisive moves on the likes of Thompson and Labano before Labano and Thompson begin to have this battle heat up again, because they've been battling very, very hard all throughout this race. And this is for the final 2 podium spots in that Spec Miata class.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Miles Crabb, though, sitting in the pits here. See exactly what happened here, Ron.
Yeah, the driver of the 131 car had a really rough start. Started from the pole, and then things completely fell apart. I think he's just decided to call it a day. There we go. Pretty simple. Happens to work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hey, I can't say that I've never done that in iRacing, and I'm sure you guys have covered me doing that in iRacing, because my temper is about as minuscule. Ron, come up with the pun for me, please.
It's about as minuscule as the gap between the bar and the ground at a tardigrade limbo competition.
There it is. See, and that is why you are so good at what you do, Ron. But we are watching some moves here. Casey Knight going for another move back here on Andy Smith. I think they've given up on going after Squirk here. It is a 4-car battle for 3rd place, Ron.
Oh, and they're nearly 3 wide, heading through the braking zone off into Horseshoe. Salmon getting the move done on Smith, but Knight still remaining in 2nd. But at this point in time, I'm curious how things are going to shake out with these racers. They aren't really running at risk of dropping into the crutches of Justice, because that's about a 5-second gap that Josh Justice would have to surmount between now and the checkered flag. I say that, though, we haven't even hit the halfway mark yet, so I would not rule it out at all. Michelle Squirick, though,
look at that gap.
I don't... Yeah,
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Ron. I know we had a camera there that was sitting on the track, and it could not even wait long enough for Casey Knight to come into frame. That's how far ahead right now Michelle Squirick is, and we're not even halfway through this race. At this point, Ron, I can see a 20-second gap forming by the end of the race, which would be insane at VIR.
And if you hear that faint noise, it is the whistling in the air of the anvil soon to crash on Michelle Squirk from the commentator's shanks. But at this point in time, Michelle, she's, to invoke a little bit of Spaceballs terminology, she has turned on the Cuisinarts here at VIR. Been a very smooth drive, a calm and composed one as well. I gotta say, I have a good feeling about her lap times being incredibly consistent. I'll have to touch back on that point in a couple of moments' time. Back now to the action for the battle with the 2 final spots inside the podium. Riding on board with Salmon. Will he be able to get a move done on Knight, or will Smith get a move done on him first? Looking at these drivers in terms of the pace that they've set, Knight currently holding the fast lap of the race at a 2:07.014. Salmon at a 2-minute 7.8 compared to Smith at a 2:08.4. Randy Marino, you can see him involved in that battle as well. Our camera car of this fight, so to speak, running at 27th, about a lap down. He's showing just only about 4/10 slower than Smith. So Smith certainly being helped out by the drama that we saw earlier on to bring him into that battle. And speaking of the battle, side by side heading off through turn number 1, Knight trying to close off Salmon on that inside line coming out of the corner. Could see a little bit of damage on the front of Zippy's race car, but at this point in time, Knight running in the second position, still holding the fastest lap of the race, but Squirk second fastest, I believe, in terms of lap time, but that's still insane, the fact she's been able to build that much of a gap in the first half.
I've been calculating some lap times here over the past few laps and looking at the gaps when she's come across the line compared to everybody else. She is about a full second faster than everybody else on track right now. And you wonder if this battling has hurt them. And at this point, I think they can see, all of these drivers can see the gaps up to Michelle Skoric. So I have a feeling, buckle in everybody, because there will be a podium spot, a second place finisher run here, and it's going to get pretty wild coming into the end of this race.
Oh, it certainly will. That pack and that battle is going to be incredibly tense to keep our eyes on. Skip Rock Jr., though, he's still running very strongly at this point, running 7th overall. The only spec Miata that's just broken away from everybody else. You have to go back to Thompson in 9th to find the next one. And in terms of pace, pretty night and day. Skip Rock Jr. in terms of, I believe this is last laps. He said a 2-minute 10.4 compared to Thompson at a 2:11.9. So Skip Rock Jr. in that number 68 car, certainly showing a whole lot of pace in that old Mazda. He's a driver who used to be a standout star in the Tuesday Night Ray Esports series, and certainly proving why he has the pace to make it a first three stints to kick this season off of different winners in the Spec Miatas.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a great, absolutely amazing run by Skip Brock Jr. First of all, to avoid all the carnage that was lap 1, and it wasn't even turn 1, Ron, which is very impressive to say none the least. But Skip Brock Jr. up here just showing how it's done, showing that these older cars, these older Miatas with their H-pattern shifters can still keep up with these younger, faster Miatas. See, I'm telling you, old's not slow, Ron, but we still do have a battle up here for second place.
Old is not slow unless you're talking about internet connections. Salmon nearly running into the back of Knight, heading down into NASCAR Bend a couple of moments ago. I think Salmon is slowly falling into the crutches of Smith. I gotta say, in terms of pace, though, despite the fact that Andy Smith doesn't really have the leg up on these two, I think in terms of the pace that he's been setting as of late, hasn't been too bad. I'm curious, Joshua, who can maybe pull up the last lap times for a lot of these racers. Smith, though, with a run heading off into turn number 7. I think in terms of lap times, hasn't been too slow compared to these two. There we go. So Andy Smith last time by setting a 2-minute 8.928 compared to Salmon at a 2:09.0 and Knight at a 2:09.1. So Andy Smith, he may not be the fastest of these racers, but what he's doing at this point is just remaining consistent.
Yeah, at this point, Ron, I think what we're going to expect what I expect to see Smith do is just hang out right now. There's no reason to go for moves that you know you're going to get overtaken back on. This track is just not conducive. It's not, when I say this, please take this with a grain of salt. It's not a driver's track. You just have to be good enough to stay in the draft of the person ahead of you. As I say that, Smith is going for a move. So forget everything I just said. Throw it out the window. Thank you, Andy Smith, for proving me wrong. And he goes off.
That was a range of emotions that was just filled over the past few moments, and a near spin as Andy Smith rejoins the racetrack. The grip spin coming back onto the racetrack for the driver of the 9 car. He's now fallen into the crutches of the 99 car of Joshua Justice, so that's going to be a battle we certainly have to keep our eyes out for. But Smith getting the move done. The thing is, Adam, it's kind of a double-edged sword when it comes to going for moves heading off into turn 14. It's at the end of one of the longest straightaways around, well, obviously this track, but the entire season as well. But at the same time, there's such a razor-thin margin to get that move moved unsuccessfully. As speaking of moved unsuccessfully, Josh Justice moves his way up into 4th, but it's such a fine line that these racers have to run going for some moves into turn 14.
There is, Ron, and I'm going to answer that. Then I'm going to fire back with another question. But the first answer to your question is, my God, how many questions did you ask me in that statement? But the first one is, yes, it is difficult trying to judge your braking point, especially when you're racing other cars going into roller coaster, other known as turn 14, right? That is extremely hard to do. And we saw Smith, I believe it was Salmon, it may have been Knight, when he got in behind Salmon or Knight going into that corner, you catch a little bit of that draft. It speeds you up, first of all, and then you can't see the braking boards because there is a Miata bumper in front of you. That is one issue with 10 top cars, is you cannot see in front of you when you're trying to draft somebody. But with that being said, I want to go back and talk about now Justice and Smith being together. Justice has actually closed this gap a little bit, Ron, but I don't know if it's going to turn into a 5-car battle, because again, that car back there is not actually part of this battle, but he is still there. So I wonder if Justice can get to him, and it just depends on what Salmon tries to do with Knight here.
Ooh, that is a very good question that you proposed there, Adam. I gotta say, though, looking at this battle, all 3 of these racers, Randy Moreno, who are riding on board with a lapped car, along with Salmon and Knight, all having terrible lines heading all through turn number 14. If they keep stuff up like that, that's going to allow Justice to reel that gap in. But I gotta say, that's not going to come without some major swings in the dying stages of this race. Justice, at this point in time, he's running in 4th, and it's about, I'm trying to do the quick math in my head, don't fail me now, public school education, that's 5 seconds between Justice and Salmon, so that's going to be, I mean, if he's going to close up that gap, he needs to make some major swings at it, and I think, unless there's some sort of contact between Knight and Salmon, which I certainly wouldn't rule out considering how hard they've been battling thus far, and plus that shoddy line heading all through turn number 14 not terribly long ago for both of those racers. Would not rule it out, however, Justice probably not hedging his bets on being able to close up that gap as Scott Russell and the 22 cars come into the pits. I think there may have been an incident with them, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to watch this, and I'd be surprised if it's not just another, I'm going to pack it in and try again in 3 weeks sort of thing. So we'll see exactly what happened with Scott Russell. Sitting back there in 20, yep, just pulls it off there. And I think that was one of those things, really not racing anybody. Try again in the TCRs here in about 20 minutes, 30 minutes time, and go from there. And again, absolutely nothing thrown at Scott Russell for that, because we all do it as Andrew Love goes off the track. Michael Snow in tow. Oh, see what I did there?
Yeah, that was very good. Well done to you. Yeah, it was Edgar Sanchez. I'll still give you that one, though, Adam. So well done on that. Sancinelli running wide, heading out of NASCAR Bend, which is quite an odd section for the simple sake that I don't think NASCAR has ever run around VIR yet. Keyword being yet. That would be pretty cool to see the NASCAR Cup Series run around this track, even though the racing would probably be really boring. Certainly not boring here with the MX-5. So we're going to take a look at a replay to see a change of position. That was mega sideways, slideways for the both of these racers. Knight had a very big sideways snap heading off into Oak Tree. Looked like Salmon was going to try and capitalize, but right as he tried to split the difference, ended up splitting his pants. That's a tough moment for the driver of the number 19 car. Going to lose out on some time and some spots as well. Was running in 3rd, briefly moved into 2nd. He's now down in 5th.
Ron, what did you just say?
About splitting his pants. It's a SpongeBob, my favorite SpongeBob episode of all time. I mean, I'm a 2004 baby, so I absolutely, some of my most fond childhood memories are watching SpongeBob. Not some of the newer stuff, but some of the older stuff, which was actually good back when Steve Hillenburg.
It's okay, we got a battle here. I don't even want to revisit what you just said. We've got Andy Smith and Joshua Justice going at it right now.
Oh, and you can see Smith running a little bit wide, heading through left hook a couple of moments ago. He's running in third for the time being, but Justice, I have a good feeling about him. He's been quietly whittling away at how things have been going in this race. It's like going in to get your nails done, you know, that nail file, just slowly whittling them away. It's not like you're just taking a chainsaw to your fingernails. Justice has been a bit more methodical in his approach into this race. Let's see if it's going to work out for him. Will he be able to get a move done to slip his way up into the final podium spot, which would be a really good result for the driver of the number 99 car. He's won in some of the races in the Group 3 competition that we have here from the Ray Esports Club Racing League. One in the Formula piece, which is a little bit interesting to say because he's a Spec Racer 4 driver, which is the other car that runs in that group. But Justice has been very fast in this series thus far, as we're going to take a look at a moment involving Labano in the number 5 car.
Yeah, see exactly what happens here to Labano. Nothing yet. Going through Oak Tree. I might be a little bit behind here. Yep, there's that pass there. Joshua Justice just gets a better corner, better exit out of Oak Tree there, and there we are. We are just now. Yep, and here we go. We're now running, and this is Chuck Labano. Sorry, there was a bit of a glitch on the replay there for me, but Chuck Labano and Campbell going at it right now, Ron.
Yeah, Campbell and Labano, they've been battling all throughout this race. Gotta say, Matt Thompson dropping out of it a teeny tiny bit, but Labano, the Canadian behind the wheel of the number 5 Frito Sport car, he's a driver who have done some race control in some other series that he runs on the iRacing platform. Done some race control in some of those other series in the past. I can assure you that Labano is a very fast racer. Very nice to see him on track in the Ray Esports world. He's certainly proving why he's a very fast racer. Currently third at the moment of the Spec Miata Racers. However, he may very well be able to get a move done on Ryan Campbell in that number 28 car in the not-too-distant future. Take a drink, everybody. I would like to apologize to you. Labano and Campbell side by side heading all through turn number 1. You can see Labano closing up to that inside line. I think he's starting to feel a little bit of pressure from Thompson right behind as he's now going for the switchback coming out of turn number 1 through turn 2 right now. Labano got to try and hold his own around the outside through turn 2 and 3. Going to still be on the outside through 4, but will he be able to clear him on corner exit? That is the all-important question, and he's able to get it done as Campbell and Thompson now start to battle behind.
Yep, and this is turning into a hornet's nest. We have about 3 minutes to go, Ron, so I don't think anybody's going to be giving any spaces. We just saw it right there. Unbelievable that Seth Spolman did not run right into the back of Matt Thompson right there, but nobody's going to give an inch. There's 3 minutes to go. You want a position. You're going to try to jockey for a position to be where you want to be coming down that front straight because it is a long drag to get to the start-finish line.
One thing that's certainly keeping my eyes open in terms of this battle and trying to figure out who's going to end up on those final 2 podium spots. I have a good feeling about Matt Thompson and Seth Spolman. You know, they've won the 2 races that we've had thus far this season for the Spec Miata competitors. They're currently running 4th and 5th within striking distance of Labano and Campbell occupying those final 2 podium spots. Skip Brock Jr., meanwhile, he is completely checked out. He'd probably be able to take a trip to Washington, D.C. before the end of this race, and he'd still be able to come out with the lead. But at this point in time, the fight is very much on for those final podium positions, and those final positions inside the top 5. Smith and Justice still battling for the final podium spot overall. Currently Smith occupying that for the time being. Never mind, make that Justice rise. I say that beautiful timing. I think Justice just got a move done heading off into turn number 1 a couple of moments ago. Labano now in P2. There's Josh Justice. A little bit of damage on the front end of that race car, so despite the fact I said the line earlier on that he was taking the methodical approach to this race, that front bumper would say otherwise, and a sideways snap hang through 4 would say otherwise as well.
No, it's okay, Josh. I mean, this was probably a pretty good time for a replay. We did see the overtake here. Josh got a little bit loose there. We can stay actually on this real quickly and see he did just get a little loose going through left hook. It may have actually not been through left hook. It may have been through the snake where he got loose, which is a weird spot to get that loose, Ron.
Yeah, that is a very odd section to get that sideways there. You can see Justice. Oh boy, let's see if he can actually. Okay, so he has held on to that P3 spot. Certainly lost out on a little bit of time, though. Perfect time for me to get hiccups on this broadcast with about 35 seconds left to go in this first race of the evening. Justice, though, not doing himself too many favors, though, as he may be at risk of losing that spot yet again on Smith, heading down that back straightaway as they are right about now. Michelle Squirick, though, this is going to be close. 15 seconds left on the clock. I think she may have a good shot of making it to the white flag. Let's see how iRacing judges this. Either way, it's going to be a good race from Michelle Squirick. The white flag, I think, is in the air. Just barely making it, about a second and a half left on the clock. That's the thing with these timed races, where these racers tend to risk it for the biscuit in terms of the fuel filling.
Yes, thank you.
Can have something like that happen, and it's going to end in tears.
The question now is, how much fuel have these drivers taken for this race? Did they expect to go this extra lap? And I will tell you, there's a Thompson trophy out there with obviously my name on it, because I made that exact mistake, thinking that a race was going to go about a lap shorter than it did, because the fast guys up front would not slow down. So I wonder what Michelle has done for the rest of these drivers. Keep an eye on some fuel saving here.
Yeah, she may have just sent this field into absolute panic mode. One driver is panicking, though, is Campbell, as Labano's now going to be side by side with him, coming onto that start-finish straightaway out of Hog Pen for the second to last time in this race. They're going to be taking the white flag, and they're going to give us a fantastic battle to keep our eyes on for that Spec Miata class. Looking at that, though, Thompson nearly running off into the dirt, heading down into turn number 1. Labano trying to get the move done on Campbell. Thompson trying to get the move done on Campbell. Looking at these racers, covered by practically nothing coming out of that section. Sentinelli and Love starting to go side by side, a little bit farther behind as well. Spolman falling out of this fight in the number 42 car, so he's not going to grab his second victory of this season. However, these racers battling hard as they possibly can for some of the final positions inside that Spec Miata top 5. Look at Andrew Love running off into the dirt around the outside through NASCAR. Benny gets that move done successfully in the 945 car. The stones from Andrew Love. Oh boy, this actually, right as I say that though, look at Santinelli nearly running into the back of him sideways through the grass.
Oh my goodness, Edgar Santinelli's going for it, but Michelle Squirick has absolutely won this race. She's about to cross the start-finish line to take this win. Michelle, sorry, we can't go on you right now because we have an absolute battle happening back there with Edgar Santinelli.
Oh, it is a hornet's nest looking at these two, covered by nothing. They're both running off of the track. This is pandemonium with these two racers running in these Spec Miatas, heading their way off now through Oak Tree. You can tell it's an intense battle based off the fact that Adam is giggling like a witch, but Labano now, he's running in the second position in the Spec Miata cars. Is Campbell going to get a move done on him? Is Thompson going to strike while the iron's hot? Look at Campbell, Labano. They're going to be side by side now through the braking zone for the final time of turn 14. Labano on that inside line, looking at Campbell. He's off the track. Bang, Campbell, you're done. It's now Thompson. He's not going to be able to get his second victory of the season. However, he may have a good shot of grabbing P2. There's a wild off-track excursion for Campbell. He's going to be taken out of that fight and then some. Labano, though, going to be exiting Hog Pen for the final time, and unless Matt Thompson is going to kick on some nitrous coming to the line, looks like it's going to be Chuck Labano grabbing P2 in the Spec Miatas. P9 overall.
Edgar Santinelli and Andrew Love here, Josh.
Oh boy, looking at this, a photo finish between these two racers. Edgar Santinelli gonna win out in that fight with himself and Andrew Love at the line.
Unbelievable. What happened to Andrew Love here? He just, did he run out of fuel? I think he did.
Oh, the one time that the fuel question strikes these drivers, it's going to strike Love. I don't think he ran out of gas. I think he just had to lift to make sure he can make it to the checkered flag. He was running on fumes, a hope, and a prayer, and so as a result of that, felt like he dropped an anchor through asphalt coming out of turn number 17. That is a heartbreaker for Love. Still going to finish when everything is said and done. Still going to end up in P6 of the Spec Miata racers, but still, that's going to sting a little bit.
Unbelievably, it's gonna sting because that was an absolute battle between those two at the end. Well done, Edgar Santinelli and Andrew Love. How they held on to that was insane. We're looking at Michelle Lynn, who came home in 15th, up 9 positions. Great drive from Michelle Lynn, by the way. Looking here at all the drivers, waiting on a couple to cross the line here. Actually, I think they might have very recently, and I know this isn't the normal Weekend Warriors format, but I think we might get some shenanigans happening here, Ron.
Oh, we've got the donuts through the grass. Joaquin Effinger doing his best Dale Earnhardt impression there, albeit at a track a couple of thousand miles away and in a race car that's about as far removed from a 1998 NASCAR Cup car that he can get. But Effinger running the Dakar rally line heading through the final sector. This is, is he going to send himself off into the shadow realm? Oh, no, he hit the end of the barrier.
Oh, man, yeah, this was some unbelievable racing here, Ron, and I am
shish
surprised.
kebabbed.
It's surprised. I'm not even going to go there, Ron. I'm not even going to go there, but I'm surprised that that all of these drivers were able to keep it as clean as they were. I mean, I have to go back to this Edgar Santinelli and Andrew Love battle, Ron. I've never seen two cars driving through the grass as much as they were on that final lap and keep all 4 tires pointing in the correct direction.
I think, honestly, that may be a highlight that we have to select from some of these broadcasts because that was just absolute insanity. Both of those drivers treating the track limits like less of a rule, not even a suggestion, just a faint idea in the back of their head. Twinning, running wide, heading through South Bend. I mean, you could see from the tire tracks through there that they weren't the first driver to go through that section in the dirt. Certainly weren't the last either, but that was just pure insanity between those two racers. Very clean racing when everything was said and done, but that was still pretty cool to watch. They're still ripping around there on the racetrack. There's Effinger. You can see a little bit of the damage on the back end of that race car when he clipped that end of the Armco barrier, but I think before we see some very odd things in these Mazdas, I think we'll move on to the results from this Mazda race. A race full of action from start to finish and some battles up and down the grid. When everything was said and done as well, saw a lot of drivers taking the checkered flag, but the driver took the checkered flag first was Michelle Squires, just absolutely dominant in this race. 19.2, nearly 19.3 seconds between herself and Casey Knight. Those two picking up the 1-2. Joshua Justice going to round out your podium in third. Then we have Andy Smith in fourth. Aaron Bray in fifth. Daniel Salmon in sixth. Skip Rock Jr. taking the checkered flag at the top of the Spec Miata Racers. Kyle Robertson going to end up in eighth. Chuck Labano in ninth. Matt Thompson going to round out your top 10. You can see Campbell, Santinelli, Love, Snow, Lynn, Brown, Grider, Key rounding out your top 18. And we'll go through the rest of the finishers that we have from this race. The rest of the drivers that were classified from this race: Huffman, Tarantino, Casey, Yankee, Effinger, Marino, Spolman, Buttermore, Eastep, Russell ends up in 28th. And the last few drivers that were classified from this race were some drivers that we saw involved in that drama at the very start, that being Miles Crabb, Corey Heffron, and Jacob Schilling. Trying to see now, do we have enough time for some interviews before we have to move our happy highnies over to the TCR race? It's got to be close. I think we're going to cut our losses and move on over to the TCRs because I think there's going to be even more fun racing that we have tonight. So we'll be right back after this message.
And real quick, Michelle Squires and Casey Knight, I see you guys up there in the interview waiting room. I'm sorry we can't get to you tonight. We are running a little bit behind, and we got to get rolling here. So congrats to those two podium finishers.
Through dip, 50, slowing crest, 40, 1 left. Caution to 2 right short.
Introducing the Sim Motion Rally Sequential Shifter. Our shifter is specifically designed for sim racing enthusiasts who want to enhance their experience in the rally world using a push-pull system. Compatible with wheelbases like the Sim Magic Alpha series, V&M Direct Drive, Fanatic, and SimiCube, it can easily be installed in minutes. It also has the adjustability to suit any wheel or driver's needs. It's also plug and play with titles like Dirt Rally, iRacing, and WRC. Available now at sim-motion.com. SimMotion has teamed up with iRacing and V&M Simulation with an extreme prize package for Season 4. To win, paint any car with a SimMotion logo, race in 10 official iRacing events, and you are entered to win an extreme direct drive and GT wheel bundle. But that's not all. Compete in the Formula 1600 Fixed Series, win your division, and you could score this set of pedals. Gear up and get racing. The rewards are waiting. With years of experience and a passion for customer service, SimMotion is a trusted name for SimMagic products. Whether you're just getting started or a seasoned pro, we have the gear to get you on the podium. At SimMotion, we don't just sell gear, we feel your passion for sim racing.
Part 2 is here, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to tonight's broadcast of the Ray Esports Club Racing League. Round number 3 for group number 1. We saw the Mazdas tackle VIR a couple of moments ago, and here we are with the TCRs. And now, Adam, seen some pretty good racing thus far this season. However, with the TCRs, it has been another story of dominance with a racer, that being the driver who's been the standout star, Jake Sneddon. But I'm looking through right now, seeing this qualifying order that we are in the midst of right now. I'm looking through. I don't see a Jake Sneddon there right now. Maybe my eyes are deceiving me, which would not be good since his glasses prescriptions are up to date for this year. But looking like we may have an open window to see who's going to take the checkered flag today.
I think we might. I'm looking through, and according to our timing here, I don't see him in here either. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly who wants to take this. Obviously, Ian Anderson right now is sitting on the pole, 157.445. We're on board right now with Michelle Squarick, though. Not that far off, but obviously not the pace we saw in the Miatas, where, by the way, she did not finish 20 seconds ahead. It was 19.7 at the end of that race. So I almost got it, but not quite. And real quick here, Ron, before I hand it back over to you, I've got some chats I've got to read out. Stevie Ray's been in the chat all night. Thank you, Stevie, for tuning in. Andrew Love said he had a slowdown at the end. He had to serve it. That's why he did not beat Edgar Sanchinelli. And then Michelle Lynn, this is a shout out to you, Ron, said no anvils today.
I did not summon any. I did not get in contact with Acme. The deliveries have been delayed forever, hopefully. Fingers crossed. I don't know what it is. I canceled my subscription. I originally had it set up a couple of years ago for the subscribe and save. Ever since then, I've tried canceling it a lot, and it just has not worked. I don't know what it's like. A really irritating like stream of subscription emails. I just keep getting them all the time, and I don't know what to do with them. It's gotten to the point where I've thought of selling them on Craigslist. But coming to the end of this qualifying session right now, less than 30 seconds to go. Speaking of drivers looking to try and impress, Ian Anderson's been an impressive driver all throughout this season. His wife Carrie in this session as well. Those two slotted in P1 and P6. Will Pierre currently joining Ian Anderson on the front row. Anderson saying a 1:57.445. That's a pretty significant gap between himself and Will Pierre in the process. So a little bit more spread out up towards the front compared to the Mazdas, but still expecting the classic, very close touring car racing.
I was muted. Yes, don't worry about those qualifying times, everybody, because those are about to go out the window here in about 2 minutes time. Hopefully we've got some results for you here. Maybe not, but I can get through them for you real quick. Obviously, you do have Ian Anderson on the pole with Will Pierre sitting there in second place. Michelle Squirick starting in third with Dylan Vose rounding out your second row. Miles Crabb starting in fifth place with Kyle Robertson in sixth. Casey Knight, obviously, as you've talked about, Michelle's roommate now, starting in seventh. Trenton Kramer starting in eighth place. I know that name. Nolan Brahmer starting in 10th with Seth Spolman in 11th. Andy Smith rounding out your top 12.
And then looking through the rest of the starters that we have in this grid, starting 13th is going to be Tyler Hare and Chuck Labana, who we saw incredibly impressive in that Miata race earlier on. He's going to be starting this TCR race in 14th. Joshua Justice in 15th. Edgar Sanchinelli in 16th. Matt Thompson in 17th. Paul Ellis in P18. Nemo Taglag with possibly the most fun to pronounce name in the entirety of my time doing iRacing broadcasting. He's going to be starting in 19th. Joining him on that 10th row, it's going to be John Casey. Joaquin Effinger in the 700 car going to be starting this race in 21st. Mike Key going to be joining him on the 11th row in 22nd. And then running after top 24 is going to be Wayne Buttermore and Aaron Bray. And we still got some more starters to go through.
We have quite a few drivers on the grid tonight. Tom Wentz, Scott Russell, Joseph Tarantino, Daniel Salmon, Ryan Campbell, Cody Heffron, and Kenny Estep rounding out the rest of your field. Can you believe that? I did that all in one breath, Ron. But real quickly here, Stevie Ray did say Anderson and Pierre are on Team Sim Motion as well. And I do want to mention that before we get into this race. Tonight's broadcast, I think you may have mentioned it already, Ron, is sponsored by Sim Motion. At the ending credits of this video, you will see a Sim Motion ad. If any sim racing needs, please call the number on the screen at the end of this broadcast. In our closing credits, you will see that commercial. And please, please, please reach out to Sim Motion. And thank you so much, Sim Motion, for allowing us to broadcast this amazing racing.
And you can also go to us.sim-motion.com because SimMotion is not only the sponsor of the official Formula 1600 series on iRacing, and is also the proud partner of the Ray Esports Club Racing League. They have also got some of Sim Racing's best equipment out there, and you can also use discount code RAY5 at checkout to get some very sweet discounts. We'll be talking about them in a little bit, but for the time being, bracing ourselves for what's going to be a hectic TCR race. These races have been dominated by rain and dominated by some adverse weather, or just dominated by a racetrack which really dominated these drivers instead of the other way around. But here, at this point, it's perfectly calm, cool, and collected. Ambient temperature 65, track temperature 69. The wind is nice, the relative humidity is nice, and these drivers looking to have a really good night of racing action to bring this race meeting to a close. That pace car's made the turn to come down pit lane. The field now in the hands of our front row sitters. The green flag is out, and the drivers are on their way. Looking like a pretty good start there from our pole man of Ian Anderson, the 147 Honda. Meanwhile, the 17 Honda of Will Pierre going to try and hold his own on the outside line. Look at Michelle Squirick getting a move done to slip her way up into second. Well done. Pretty slick move thus far. That's a car going off a little bit farther in the back. That, I believe, may be the Honda, the 444 of Trenton Kramer. Now that actually may be Mike Key in the 98 car. But looking at the front of the field still, it's Anderson over Squirick, over Pierre, Crab, and Casey Knight running at your top 5.
Squirick was able to get one move done, sitting now up into second place now, but it is still a hornet's nest. These guys have to get this figured out, or it's going to turn into another Miata race. Everybody needs to get single file here, but it doesn't look like they're trying to, as there was a spinner in the background there, Ron.
The first spinner, the first driver running into some difficulties. Whenever you see a spin in the TCR, it's not down to getting a little bit too overly opportunistic on the throttle, as that's a big wreck coming out of the snake, heading under the bridge. Looking at that sideways, slideways, stopped on the track. That's Salmon involved in that incident. Looking to see who else it may have been. That was Ryan Campbell that got a piece of that action as well. So the 25 and the 29 coming to blows, coming out of turn number 7, heading under the bridge. Looks like some overly opportunistic racing, going to end in tears, and that is a wild, absolutely horrendous shortcut from Corey Heffron. He nearly ended up facing oncoming traffic. He went that wide coming out of turn number 10 of South Bend. There he is, rejoining the racetrack in 29th. Last of the drivers still out there on the racetrack, which is down 2 after that big crash coming out of turn number 7, but Anderson still leading this race.
Yeah, I did want to mention that. We didn't see any issues there in South Bend at the beginning or during the whole Miata race, but South Bend really tends to catch a lot of drivers out, I've noticed, so I'm surprised nothing happened there in the Miatas, but it is catching drivers out here. And then we did see a massive wreck there at the beginning as well, but we're not worried about that right now because there is still some crazy battles going on up here at the front. Ian Anderson, unlike Michelle Squirick, about 20 minutes ago, has not been able to get away. About 1.2 seconds. He's just barely still inside that draft, Ron. And look at how much that gap closes going down into turn 1.
Yeah, you could see that gap diminishing. That, I mean, it was down by like a quarter in just one straightaway alone. Really speaks volumes about the draft heaviness of these TCR race cars. Usually on the iRacing platform, when you think of draft heavy cars, there's a lot of things that come into mind in the road course world. You think of Formula Vs, you think of Spec Racer Fords, you think of some radical SR10s. The TCRs, though, on the other hand, on account of the fact that most of these race cars are flying bricks, really punches a big hole in the air and allows these racers to draft like it's going out of style. Looking at Key in the 998 car. I want to apologize to Key because I said he was one of the cars that maybe went off the circuit coming through turn number 1. I believe it was actually Trenton Kramer here in the 444 car, so I apologize for that. Kramer running in lucky number P13, finding himself in a battle. And who was that? That, I believe, may have been Nemo Tagalag. I think he just went, golly, he may end up being in Tennessee by the end of that.
That was, yeah, he was going a long way from home there, but we'll see. Hopefully we might be able to get a replay of that one. But right now, Edgar Sancinelli is involved in another battle at the moment, and I believe that is Casey Knight right in front of him, so she is still battling right now, sitting back in 11th place. Michelle Squirick, though, has gained back up onto the back of Ian Anderson. It is anybody's game, Ron, and this is what I expected in the Miatas.
There's about 1.3 seconds between those two racers not terribly long ago. It's now 0.3 of a second. That, I think, may have been Joaquin Effinger, just went incredibly deep heading down into turn number 14. No, and that's a bad rejoin.
That's
Buttermore getting a piece of that. Effinger rejoining the racetrack, and Buttermore with nowhere to go. That's another crash heading through turn 14. That I think, I'm not entirely sure who that was. There's the tough rejoin from Joaquin Effinger. Buttermore with nowhere to go. That falling anvil striking him badly. Not sure who that was, though, that just went off the track not terribly long after that. Just saw a car spear off the circuit heading through turn 14. Following that moment, we're going to take a look at a big moment that kicked this race off the incident hang out of turn number 7 on lap 1.
Yeah, I'll let you walk us through that one, Ron.
Let's, oh boy, you can see hard racing at the very beginning of this race. Gotta take a look at another angle of this time with the slow motion broadcasting helicopter, and there you can see, that's just two cars fighting for the same piece of real estate. That's gonna end in tears no matter what kind of race car you're driving around. Campbell being a little bit too overly opportunistic. Salmon certainly not doing himself too many favors either, but either way, that's gonna be a tough moment for the both of them. Really hard pill to swallow. Vose in the number 19 car, mega sideways coming out of Oak Tree. Very lucky to keep that number 19 car going in a straight line. Still finds himself in the 7th position. As we're going to take a look at a moment involving Tagalag in the number 4 car. So I think he was a driver that we saw spear off the track heading through South Bend not terribly long ago. But I think he had another moment running wide coming out of Oak Tree. That classic front wheel drive oversteer is certainly rearing its ugly head.
Gotta love front-wheel drive cars, and the fact that they put racing suspension on them. Everyone wants to run them. They're cheap, and they are a lot of fun to drive until you try to hit the gas in a corner, and that's exactly what happens. But Ian Anderson right now still sitting in the lead of this race. Michel Squirick, though, again, like I mentioned, has closed that gap, but don't look now. Will Pierre has not let these two out of their sight, so it's a 3-car breakaway right now, but it's still Miles Crabb is still close enough to be able to pull this gap in just a little bit if they start to battle.
And I think Miles Crabb has a point to prove as well. Talk about a driver who, in terms of luck, is really the filled-in snake pit at the zoo, has not had a pit to hiss in at all. I mean, we just saw it in the Mazdas earlier on. Started from the pole, was running good throughout the first 2/3 of lap 1, then coming out of Oak Tree, and ends up getting KO'd. But at this point, Crabb's still running strong, still running in 4th. He's not exactly involved in this battle for now. However, if he plays his cards right, we may see the driver of the 131 car rear his head in this fight. I wouldn't rule it out, and based off the fact he's had such terrible luck throughout the season, despite showing such brilliant pace, I think if anyone in this field is looking to try and grab a victory, it's probably going to be Crabb.
I think you're probably right on that one, Ron. And sorry, I just choked on my water, and I am gagging right now. But, yeah, Miles Crabb is still...
Quick lesson to broadcasters out there, swallow before you speak.
Exactly. That's exactly what I tried to do. So, anyways, yeah, Miles Crabb, like you mentioned, he is still there. I mean, that gap is around 1.6 seconds. He's not letting it go, especially if Michel Squirick tries to go for a move here in roller coaster, Ron.
Squirk is feeling oh so racy at this point in time, but Anderson driving the widest Honda in the world. So let's see if Squirk will be able to get a move done in the not too distant future. Always love sports car racing of any kind, whether it be in the form of just running some good old-fashioned IMSA, or whether it be running TCRs. You've got Hondas, you've got Hyundais, you've got Audis, and you've got just about everything that iRacing has to offer. And right now we're seeing these racers in all sorts of different race cars battling hard. You've got 3 Hondas and a Hyundai at the north end of this field. Squirick being the only Hyundai in this pack for the time being. However, certainly showing a lot of pace. The same can't really be said about Casey Knight.
Yes.
Actually, that's a little bit mean. It wasn't a lack of pace. I think it may have been a lack of luck. I think Casey may have gotten herself involved in some sort of drama, possibly with Edgar Santinelli, as both of them have towed back to pit lane.
Yeah, I'm looking here now. Casey Knight said brake failure LOL in the chat. So exactly what happened here to Casey Knight, we're about to find out.
This is going to be a wild ride to be sure. Heading off now through turn, that's Oak Tree. A little bit side, okay, I was expecting some fireworks there. Still going to be a heartbreaker for Casey Knight, running solidly inside the top 15, but going to have that moment take her out of contention. On the other hand, though, Michelle Squire still running in this race, running second for now. The front four, though, it's definitely turned into a front four. Crab has closed up that gap to Pierre in third.
Yeah, this is all of a sudden turned into a 4-car battle. And Ron, we're used to a 30-minute race. We've got a 40-minute race here. So what do these drivers do for 40 minutes? Do you really want to battle that hard? Because if Crab's been able to get there, what's saying that Robertson and Brommer's not going to be able to get there as well? The last thing that you want to do is have a bunch of cars battling for P1 on the last lap. So let's see if these drivers work together, or we'll see if they just go balls to the wall. Sorry, that is literally the only thing that I could think of before it came out of my mouth.
Oh, trust me, I've said some very odd things. I think I remember one of the first ever broadcasts I did around this very racetrack, and Adam, this will be a little bit of an explanation for the V runoffs broadcast we did a couple of days ago here on SMB. And I said a line to you that was said to me around this very racetrack, and I think my 9th or 10th ever broadcast in my entire broadcasting career, where one of my colleagues said that my balls had dropped after a very close call heading off through turn number 10. So believe me, I have said my fair share of ball-related quotes. But speaking of some ballsy moves, this is a ballsy bit of drama with Tagalog and Smith nearly having a game of tag coming out of turn number 1.
Yep, that was another good pun there that I'm not going to be able to follow up. But Andy Smith decided better of going for that move there on Tagalog. Tagalog started to close that door just a little bit. Andy Smith said, all right, we're going to race another day. We're only 10 minutes into this. Again, there are now still 29 minutes left in this race. So there's still plenty to happen here. Looks like Robertson has gone off track. Robertson's gone really off track here up at the front of the field. He's still off track.
Yeah, he's now dropped down to 8th, so not sure what's going down with Robertson. That is going to be a really tough turn of things for them. Could see some smoke heading through as the drivers that we see on camera right now head their way through South Bend. Not sure if that was just some very odd cloud formations or what. Here's Kyle Robertson in the 215 car, heading his way off through the S's, mega sideways, going for a major off-track excursion and spinning the other way around as well. A maneuver that you'd usually see in a Dukes of Hazzard movie. Robertson doing it on the iRacing platform with some TCR race cars. Going to escape that with a rather clean race car. Certainly not some very clean tires. And if he was involved in a side-by-side fight, wouldn't have clean pants either. As contact being made between those two. Tagalog and Smith. Another tag heading off through turn number 14. Looks like Tagalog going to hold on to that 14th spot for now. But that could have ended in a round of bowling.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like Tagalog had gotten around Smith, but Smith said absolutely not. Smith goes for the move here, see exactly what happens. But yeah, I mean, again, this is just one of those spots of the track, Ron, where you think you can go 2 into 1 until you come over the top of that hill, hence the name roller coaster, and it's not.
Oh, the small little nudge. I'm not even sure if there's contact being registered in the sim. I think Andy Smith may have just moved over a teeny tiny bit, thinking that contact was going to be made. I have seen my fair share of incidents heading through that section, both in real life and in the sim as well. And if there's a small little tap heading off through turn number 14, have it be known that that small tap can end in a ginormous collision. So I think those two drivers should be counting their lucky stars, the fact they got away with one there. Looking at Tyler Heron in the number 11 car, he's now finding himself in a rather close fight with himself, and that I believe is Justice right behind. These two racers heading their way off through the S's right now. One in a Honda, the other in a Hyundai. And I feel like, Adam, I will ask you this quick question as we're seeing this battle here. Gotta ask you about optics and all that stuff. Of all these cars, which is the best looking of the TCRs?
Well, see, Ron, you put me between a rock and a hard place here, okay? Because I am not a fan of any of these cars, to be honest with you. And I'm looking through, I've got Audi, Honda, Hyundai. I don't see any American cars in this field right now. I owned a 1972 El Camino, so I will say that the Chevy Cruze looks best out of all of these things. They could be turned into TCRs, but if we're talking about what's going on in the race, that Hyundai I did have an Elantra at one time, and that's what I have at iRacing, so I can't really hate on the Hyundai that much, so I'm going with Hyundai. But real quick, before I turn it back over to you, Ron, we've got a couple of developments here in the YouTube chat. It looks like K-Fox said Casey's brakes failed in real life. Brake is angled 45 degrees inward, to which Stevie Ray replied, Casey needs to get with Sim Motion. Call Darren. Unbelievable, impeccable timing by Stevie Ray in the chat.
Damn it, that was going to be the transition I was going to use. Let me, let's rewind the clocks a little bit. You know, I was looking through the SMB Discord server, and I noticed a photo from Casey Knight of her brake pedal, and the reason why she's had to retire from this race, I'll tell you what, that is looking really, really rough. That is an unfixable situation, and I think it's a very good thing that that's an unfixable situation that happens in this series, because tonight's broadcast of the Ray Esports Club Racing League on Slow Motion Broadcasting is brought to you tonight by Sim Motion. Sim Motion is a store by sim racers for sim racers, carrying everything from bun boxes and steering wheels, and hopefully pedals in the case of Casey Knight, and the best brands in the sim racing world, including Sim Magic, Moza, Husingveld, and many, many more. With decades of experience in the industry, Sim Motion is a great choice for sim racers in both North America and Europe looking to upgrade their simulators. If you'd like to check out what Sim Motion has to offer, you can head on off to us.sim-motion.com. That's us.sim-motion.com. Sim Motion is not only the sponsor of the official Formula 1600 series here on iRacing, but is a proud partner of the Ray Esports Club Racing League, and feel free to use discount code RAY5 at checkout for some very nice discounts. Casey, watching? You may need to use that discount because that looks like a really, really tough situation. There's only two things that I feel like in the world could fix that. A little bit of super glue, maybe some duct tape possibly, or the Lord's Prayer, maybe? I'm not sure. I mean, okay, this coming from someone like me, I remember getting, oh boy, this is a nice little story. I remember getting rug burn in Catholic church once, so...
We're going to stop there. We're going to move this conversation on just a little bit here and say, I just want to tell you guys how amazing the production has been for the last 3 minutes in this broadcast. As Ron, you're talking about Sim Motion, we're covering Ian Anderson and Will Pierre, who have Sim Motion plastered all over their cars. So unbelievable production timing as well by Joshua Wilkie. I just have to throw that out there. And let's not talk about rug burns anymore, Ron. We're going to move on.
I was going to say sunburn, but that was going to be stealing a line from my best friend, and I thought better of that. So we'll just leave that be. I dipped my hand in the holy water, and the water started to boil. Looking at Will Pierre running in third, and this pack is still rather close up at the north end of this field. Anderson Squirek, I should say. Gotta get the correct name pronunciation there. I will eventually get the hang of things come time for the end of the season. Will Pierre and Miles Crab still covered by practically nothing. Crab slowly, I think, losing touch though, as it's about my apologies, not 9, about 0.6 of a second a couple of moments ago between Pierre and Crab. I'm curious, Adam, how you think things are going to shake out with these front four as we're slowly but surely approaching the halfway mark?
Yeah, I think things are probably going to shake out exactly how we're looking at it right now, and they're doing exactly what I expected them to do, and to know that they are not battling for the win right now. They're just trying to get through to the end of the race. They have about an 11-second gap back to Brommer. So, but with that being said, it's anybody's race, and if one of these drivers, they might all be in a call together, they might be on comms together saying, hey, let's work this out at the end. But I don't quite know exactly what I would do in this situation, because do you want to wait till the end of the race and then start battling and then you get screwed on the last lap? I don't quite know, because it might hurt a little bit more to be battling on the last lap of a race and then get screwed out of a win. But I think this is probably the best way to do it right now, because you don't want this 4-car battle to turn into a 5, 6, 7, 8-car battle.
Yeah, you don't want to have even more of a hornet's nest to deal with as well. Don't want to have to call in the exterminator either. And I think Josh is pointing something out possibly. Do we have the photo of the possibly unfixable situation with Casey Knight's sim rig up on screen right now, because that photo's looking really, really rough. There we go. Yee howdy. That is, oh boy, that's about 5 sheared bolts made of the most high quality Chinese steel.
So Michelle, I'm sorry, Casey, at what point did you think, oh crap, and hit the brakes way too hard? Because, I mean, that took some force. That took a lot of force to be able to break 3 of those bolts and get them to move. And now, if we do have a little bit of time here, I don't think Casey's racing right now. She's still sitting in interview waiting. I don't know if she's sitting in there, Ron. You want to try to get a bit of an interview mid-race or no?
We may wait for this battle to cool off with Kyle Robertson and Vose side by side heading through coming through turn number 15 right now, coming down the hill. Some fantastic corner names around this racetrack, but they don't have the section named between roller coaster and hog pen, so I think we may need to come up with a name for that ourselves. I have to bring in the other naming commission to call that. Looking at this battle, though, heading down the start-finish straightaway, Kyle Robertson in the 215 car, contact being made. Heading down that start-finish straightaway, Dylan Vose certainly breaking the elbows out, and Seth Spolman, look at him running in the 8th position. He may try and get involved in this fight. Looking at those 2 cars, pretty much the front bumper of Kyle Robertson's car completely merged in with the back of Vose's back bumper. So some odd things in the iRacing physics world happening there as Vose sideways, slideways, heading through turn number 3. He's going to trip up and lose out on that 6th place spot.
Casey's over here saying I was moving it with my peel. No, another screw. I mean, so basically what it sounds like, Casey, is, you know, it's like changing the oil in your car, right? Sometimes you just got to do some maintenance and just don't let it go on too long because things like this happen, maybe. Casey, I'm just saying, maybe that's not the case. I'm not trying to start any fires, and I swear I still love you. You are extremely fast, even with 3 bolts holding your brake pedal down. Unbelievable finish, like Michelle said, in 2nd place. But yes, Dylan Vose, Seth Spolman, still up here battling. They don't care about how much time's left, Ron. They're just going to go for it and expect a move here into roller coaster, which, as you know, I'm still trying to think of a name, by the way, between roller coaster and hog pen. But as you know, roller coaster can get a little bit, you know, wild.
Yeah, sometimes hanging through hog pen, you really feel like you're treading through the mud there. And I gotta say one thing in reference to Casey. Yeah, that was terrible. I apologize. One thing I gotta say in reference to Casey and having 3 bolts holding together that brake pedal. I think I've probably got about 2 bolts holding my brain together, so I can't really judge one bit. That's why occasionally when I shake my head on some of these broadcasts, you may hear a little bit of metal rattling around. But anyways, that was some odd lines coming out on this broadcast. But at this point in time, looking at a fight maybe developing here with Vose and Spolman in P7 and P8. Most of the field has rather settled down at this point, Adam. The front 4 still covered by practically nothing. I think that slow slip back of Miles Crab is definitely continuing now, about 0.7 of a second between Will Pierre in 3rd and Miles Crab in 4th. So that may be something we have to keep tabs on between now and the end of this race. This 3-car fight, which is now a 4-car fight, maybe got turned into a 3-car fight again between now and the checkered flag. So this battle's still staying close, but we haven't seen too much swap-a-roo of positions. Anderson has been the Pied Piper thus far. Squirek has been running in P2 all throughout. Pierre in 3rd. Crab running in 4th as well. Maybe just waiting for those final couple of laps, final couple of corners as well, before they really kick on the Hyperjets.
I think that's exactly what they're doing here. They're just playing it nice and safe. Again, we have just gone over halfway in this race, so anything can happen here. It's just one of those things where we're just kind of hanging out right now watching it. And while we're hanging out here, she's still sitting in the interview waiting room, Ron, so I'm going to do it. So we're going to try to bring Casey Knight in here. Are you there, Casey?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you are. So you didn't read the directions is what we're hearing.
Yes.
So 3 bolts instead of 4? What exactly happened there? And you said you went through that whole MX-5 race like that.
Yeah, so, moved house, so I usually just race on a desk, but my desk, I left it at home because I couldn't fit it into a Cadillac. So
Wait a minute. You couldn't fit something into a Cadillac?
I drive a CTS. They're not the
Okay.
most big
That's fair.
cars.
That's fair.
But yeah, so went and got a rig, my first ever rig, and I'm currently using Michelle's dining table as my monitor stand. So I was just so excited to get it done. There was only one bolt holding the back of that on there, and I just tightened it really tight, and I'm like, it's not gonna go anywhere. I can do this. And about 5 to 10 minutes into the MX-5 race, I'm like, oh, my brake pedal's angled. And then,
Well, no,
at the start
I mean,
of the TCR race, I think you noticed what happened on lap 1. That's when it really went.
we did, and congratulations to you for driving with an angled brake pedal for 30 minutes, basically 30 minutes. Not so much congratulations for not being able to finish the TCR, but unbelievable drive from you there, Casey. And while we've got a little bit of time, Michelle is still absolutely battling up here at the front of the pack right now, but while we got a little bit of time, I would ask you how your race went in the MX-5s for that P2, but I think we already know. But anybody you want to thank or shout out?
I want to just thank everybody at the broadcast, everybody at Slow Motion Broadcast, everybody in the race. I want to say silent. Not only are my screws loose, my brain's loose right now. I'm like you in the broadcast booth.
Well, I have no room to judge there, Casey.
I want to say sorry to Kyle. That was my fault for the pit maneuver, and other than that, a lot of fun. And yeah, probably the scariest 10 minutes of my life. Just trying to make sure that I don't die. And then halfway through qualifying, I'm like, I'm not even going to qualify this car, and I jumped out, tried tightening it up. I think I loosened it.
Remember, righty-tighty, Casey, righty-tighty. But thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, y'all
You good?
time.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in here and having a bit of a chat with us. And speaking of some scary moments, Michelle Squirick was just absolutely sideways. So we're going to get back to the race here, Casey. But hey, go get that rig fixed, huh?
All right. Also, if SimMotion's going to sell anything from that, I want some propane.
Okay, sounds great, Casey. That was an absolute impeccable timing, by the way, on the sponsor drop there. Thank you so much, Casey, for joining us.
Y'all have a great day.
You too. That was Casey Knight there, and thank you so much for giving me the time to talk to Casey. I wanted to drag her in there, but yeah, we're just talking about some battles all of a sudden that happened to form when we try to interview somebody, Ron.
Yeah, as soon as we bring someone else into the commentary booth, pandemonium breaks out on the racetrack. That sideways moment for Squirick heading off through South Bend a couple of moments ago, that had to have been terrifying. I feel like if Casey's mic was a little bit stronger there, we probably would have heard some not very safe for broadcasting words said from Michelle Squirick with that sideways moment. I can't necessarily blame her, because that, I mean, just from my perspective in the commentary booth, that was a horrifying moment there, Adam. The fact she's still running second is a miracle.
It absolutely was. Right now, looking on behind Tyler Heron here, Joshua Justice, a guy that's been involved in battles in both races right now, sitting in 11th place. I mean, this is a battle too, so we've actually got two battles starting to form here for basically the top 11th place and a battle for first place, but it looks like these drivers back here in 11th aren't taking it so easy.
They certainly aren't. They're seeing that checkered flag come up in the not-too-distant future. You think, okay, 40 minutes...
God, stop it!
Okay. I really need to come up with some new terminology, do I? But anyways, they're seeing the checkered flag approach, and they're slowly but surely turning up the wick. That's what they're doing at this point. You usually think, okay, 40 minutes, got a whole lot of time left to go. Don't need to push the issue. We're now coming up to the 28-minute mark on the clock. Only 12 more left to go. So these racers, they're thinking already, checkered flag's coming. I need to get some moves done. I need to figure out how exactly I can get these moves done as well. You don't go for a cannonball dive off into a freezing cold swimming pool. You need to dip your toes in that water first before you have any idea exactly how you're going to go about everything.
Well,
that
like
is
Matt
the stage
Thompson
of the
is
race that
dipping
we're
his
seeing
toes
this.
first. It looks like
Yeah,
Matt
that they
Thompson
are.
has started to dip his toes. He's going to try to make a move around the outside of Joshua Justice here. Oh, but no, look at this. Justice is going to make the move on the inside of Heron. Heron drives it in a little bit deep. Now the question is Thompson going to let Heron go? No, Heron's going to try to follow Justice through.
Oh, is it going to be successful, though? Justice running wide, and look at that. Thompson threading the needle, and they nearly bring up all three of them off the track. That was a terrifying moment for Matt Thompson in the number 33 Frito Sport car. Thankfully for him, outside of some lost positions and some lost time and also some very badly stained underwear, I'm sure, gets away with that fairly scot-free. I say fairly scot-free. Certainly a terrifying moment to be sure, but the side-by-side fighting is still continuing with Heron and Justice. I think we're going to have to pull up some replays of that. I did not have a good feeling about that in the slightest. Justice ran wide coming out of turn number 3. He was on the grass trying to rejoin the racetrack. Thompson was like, I know what I'm going to do. Tried splitting the difference, and then it ends in absolute disaster. Nearly. Still ended in a minor disaster, though, as we look at this.
That's what
oh
happened.
my. Holy
Yo,
cow.
I would not want to be a fly on the front of Thompson's bumper when all that went down, because if flies wore my goodness, I'm going to try this again. If flies wore pants, I'm pretty sure they would split their pants on that one, Ron.
Oh, I've created a monster here. Take a look at another angle of this moment. Justice, he tried to get the move done, but just carried a bit too much speed through the corner. Justice, look at that. That was a matter of millimeters even. That was terrifyingly close with Thompson and Justice. We nearly just saw another round of bowling there, Adam. I don't think there's any other way to describe it.
No, it's not done yet either. I mean, Joshua Justice is one of those drivers that do stay very, very clean, but do not underestimate him. He will race hard. Justice is one of those drivers you want to race with, but you don't want to be around if you're trying to just race a clean and just by yourself race, because Justice will battle you. And this is exactly what's probably going to happen here with Heron in the, I almost said it not too distant future, but I stayed away from it. In the very near future, and there goes Justice.
And there he goes, getting that move done to slip his way up into the top 10 with Heron running deep heading into turn number 3. So that smoke coming up in the air from the dust and dirt on the outside of the track. And maybe a little bit of a sideways snap for Heron as well. Either way, he's fallen into the crutches of Smith as well. And look at Thompson. We can't discount him yet, Adam.
No.
Had that moment not terribly long ago, but he's put on a solid, I wouldn't say a recovery drive just yet. Still running down in 13th, but he hasn't completely lost touch with this pack either, as it looks like Heron runs wide coming out of turn number 10. Right as I say that, though, Matt Thompson running doubly wide as side-by-side heading off through Oak Tree.
I don't know what it is with these Frito Sport drivers tonight, but hey, guys, the black stuff, that's the asphalt. Stay on it. I'm talking to you, Matt. I'm talking to you, Edgar. There's black stuff on the track. You want to stay on the little bit of shinier stuff. You don't want to go off into the green stuff. It's not faster, but these guys are finding a way to make it faster. But real quick, I want to talk about this. I don't know what has happened to Will Pierre, but he has fallen off of that top 3. He's back now 5 seconds behind Miles Crab.
Yeah, there was a moment not terribly long ago with Pierre. I was going to note that before we brought Casey in for the interview. So this happened a little while ago, if we're being honest. Here's Will Pierre in the number 17 car, heading his way off through Oak Tree. At this point in time, he was running in 3rd, runs wide coming out of the corner, so a simple off-track excursion there. That may have resulted in a slowdown, though. That must have been early on in the race, just based off how close the pack was. So looking now, following Crab, who was running 4th at the time. And, maybe a little bit of contact being made heading through the stake section.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened. That was a bit of an interesting move, to say the least, but we are not racing stewards. But moving on back to Joshua Justice, still sitting up there in 10th place. Now, the problem is he's got about 10 seconds to get up to Kerry Anderson there in 9th place. So it's going to be an interesting move. I don't think, again, this is what we talked about last race, Ron, just not enough time to get there. I think Joshua Justice may be the fastest of these drivers, but with the draft nature of this track, it squirks off.
Michelle Squirick running wide coming out of roller coaster, taking that trip through the grass. Now rejoining it, albeit down in third, losing out on a boatload of time. Let's take a look at the moment for the driver in the formidable racing development. Oh boy, and big contact heading through the braking zone. Sends her straight off the track. The formidable racing development number 75 car. Try saying that 5 times fast, folks. Taking a one-way trip into the grass. Low bit contact being made between herself and Anderson. Gonna take a look at another angle of this riding over top with the helicopter camera. No contact being made. They got close though.
So we saw this happen a little earlier, and somebody mentioned it in the YouTube chat as well about maybe there's a bit of netcode, or maybe that's just the nature of these drivers. They are good, great drivers, actually. So if they see someone coming in, they're going to try to give them room, and you wonder if there's just that little twitch of the wheel, especially going into roller coaster. You lose a lot of downforce going over the top of that hill. Could cause just a little bit of an issue, but with that being said, it is now Ian Anderson and Miles Crabb up there at front, but we do have a move here on maybe. Looks like Thompson's going to try to get around the inside of Justice, and he lets it happen a little bit. Joshua Justice does, but don't expect Joshua Justice to be so nice about 3 minutes from now.
Well, I think there may have just been a moment involving Seth Spolman. He had to tow back to pit lane in the past few moments, as we're taking a look at a replay to see a moment involving Matt Thompson in the number 33 car. Getting a move done, heading off into turn number 1. Looks like a fairly textbook overtake for that driver. Gonna continue to follow him there. It looks like a pretty simple move. That, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, was on Heron, who's dropped back a lot as we go back to the front. Squirick and Will Pierre now side by side heading through turn number 14 of roller coaster. Still side by side heading down the hill, about to enter Hog Pen, and a couple of moments time through the barn doors. That may have been the section name that we finally come up with for that part of the track. But Squirick getting a move done to slip her way up into third for now though, but she's not gotten a good exit going on to that start finish straightaway. She may lose back down to fourth again.
Yeah, unbelievable driving by these two, and this is what I'm saying about when you get to be this good, you do try to give as much room, but not too much room, and there they go again, a little bit of bumping even. That's why I love fenders. Stevie, you heard it here first. That's why I like fendered cars more than open wheel cars, but look at them still leaning on each other here, Ron.
This is classic TCR racing. These racers leaving nothing out there on the racetrack. No stone being unturned and nearly coming to blows. Heading off into turn number 4 of left hook. Will Pierre nearly trying to invoke some NASCAR maneuvers, attempting a bump and run on Michelle Squirick, but not close enough. Heading off into turn number 4. These two racers still running in third and fourth respectively. Ian Anderson and Miles Crabb, they've checked out, but they haven't checked out away from each other. They're covered by just 3/10 of a second. I feel like I need to zip up again, because at this point in time, as soon as I started talking about these racers being close, that gap started to balloon. But there we are. They're back closing up, about to head their way into Oak Tree in a couple of moments. Actually, no, my apologies. Those two behind heading their way through Oak Tree. These two, on the other hand, going on to that back straightaway right about now. Anderson running in the lead for now. He's run in the lead ever since the drop of the green flag, trying to grab his first victory of the season, but it's not going to be easy. He's got Crabb hounding him, heading through the braking zone at turn number 14. Crabb, a driver who I said coming into this race is one that we need to keep our eyes on, certainly proving it.
Yes, Crabb with that Mad Sim Racing livery, and shout out to Tyler Beeman. If Tyler, you ever watch this broadcast, I miss you, buddy, and I need to talk to you sometime soon. I know we were supposed to have a trip down to Daytona for the Daytona 24. I don't know if it's going to happen, but yes, Miles Crabb sporting that very beautiful Mad Sim Racing livery. But the question is, Ron, is it going to be beautiful at the end of this race? And when does Miles Crabb decide to start trying to look at where he's going to make these moves, and when does it happen? Does it happen on the last lap? Does it happen going into roller coaster? We've seen a couple moves try to get taken into roller coaster, as Pierre and Squirick still going at it, but the roller coaster move may not be the move. It may be into turn 1.
That is a very good question that you raised there, Adam. I'm curious how these drivers are going to tackle the end of this race. Side-by-side racing here with Dylan Vose and Kyle Robertson. This for the final position inside the top 5. Looks like it's going to be Vos holding on to it for now, but look at Robertson still holding his own around the outside of turn 1. Now the inside line through 2 and 3. Will Kyle Robertson in the 2-1-5 get that move done? Yes, he will. So that's fairly lock steady between those two racers. My attention, though, is back up towards the front. Anderson and Crab, how are they going to go about the final lap of this race? The final lap and a third. I think, Adam, you raise a really good point based off the fact that we've seen so many drivers run into some difficulties heading off through turn 14. Look at the lap traffic they've got to deal with as well, Adam. That may play a big factor in deciding how things are going to shake out for these racers. That, I believe, may be Wendt in the number 20, running in 20th as it stands at the moment. Tom Wendt in the number 28 Honda. He may be a deciding factor as to how things shake out with Anderson and Crab. Is he going to get out of their way, or is he going to put up a bit more of a fight? Get out of their way, and oh no! Running into the side of Miles Crab, and that is going to be a game changer. Crab dropping down.
Man.
I think I heard some stuff in the iRacing chat right before then about some frustration being vented about Wentz not getting out of the way of the leaders. That would have been entirely prevented had a little bit more caution been applied with the lapped car. That's gonna sting, though. No fault of Anderson or Crab. You gotta feel bad for Crab, that falling anvil striking him at the worst possible time. But I think a little bit of discretion should have been used in the case of when to prevent this. That was unnecessary.
Yeah, that is extremely unfortunate. I mean, waiting until the last second, especially going through roller coaster, which we've seen so many times, time and time again with cars racing each other on the lead lap, that it doesn't work. It's just... oh, that's unfortunate. Ian Anderson, though, congratulations, I think. Ian Anderson, but don't say that yet, because Crab has closed that gap back up. I just don't know if he's going to be close enough. It's going to be tight, and Crab's got a little bit of damage now on that right side, on the doors of his car, so we'll see what Crab can do, but he's got to be able to get close enough down the back straight, and now, Ron, he's going to have to make a move into roller coaster.
Oh, he's going to have to go for a move at any sort of opportunity he can get. The real question is, are those opportunities going to find their way into Miles Crab's race? Is Anderson going to make that mistake? Because at this point in time, with about a second separating the two of them heading out of Oak Tree for the final time, it would have to be a mistake for Anderson for Crab to have any sort of hope in grabbing this race victory. It's a tough, unfortunate incident involving lap traffic. Right as I saw that, I knew it was going to play a deciding factor. Didn't think it was going to settle this race as it did, but hey, this race is still not done. You don't want to count your eggs before they hatch. You don't want to grab that checkered flag before you actually cross under that flag man's stand and cross that start-finish line. But Anderson, he has not put a foot wrong on this last lap. You can see that front-wheel drive understeer heading through Hog Pen for the final time, but in a dramatic series of events that ended in tears for one of them, Ian Anderson is going to end this race in tears from the champagne in his eyes, taking the checkered flag to win it here in the TCR's Crab. Valiant effort, incredibly valiant effort, saying a 1:57.7 on that final lap, much quicker than Anderson, to close up that gap to 0.7 of a second. I think had that damage been a bit less severe on the side of Miles Crab's race car, and maybe given the benefit of a bit more time, possibly a 50-minute long race, that could have been Miles Crab's victory instead of Anderson's. But either way, it's Anderson taking the checkered flag, taking the victory here at VIR. Probably not the way you want to go about it, though. Tough.
No, it is tough. But again, there's always, well, I would say there's always next week, but there's always 3 weeks from now or 2 weeks from now. So it's one of those things. You just got to take it with a grain of salt, come back, and at least you don't have to repair your car. You don't have to pay for the repairs on your car, because I'm pretty sure there would have been a little bit more controversy in the pits after that race. But Joshua Justice ends up coming home 11th place with Matt Thompson in 12th. Looks like Tyler Heron is going to be crossing the line in 13th place. Yes, he is, and it looks like there was a bit of a battle there, but I think that was a lap car. Scott Russell coming home in 14th with, hey, there's your guy, Nemo Tagalag, coming home in 15th, Ron.
I'm going to share a quick little story here of the driver of the number 4 cars. Actually, we take a look at a replay to see a moment involving the number 4 car running wide, heading through the corner and nearly coming to blows. Who was that? Getting a move done on him, striking while the iron was hot, and contact being made again, heading down into Oak Tree. That was the number 31 of Scott Russell. But either way, hard racing between those two all the way to the line. They round out your top 15. So here's a story that I was going to share. So one of my closest friends who I've been driving in karts with, well, I say been driving in karts with, drove in karts with from 2017 to about 2022 was the last time him and I raced together, at least in the real life world. He has occasionally tuned into some of these broadcasts. I think everyone should really tune into these broadcasts since the racing is as exciting as it is. Subtle plug. But no, he was very much so enamored with Nemo Taglag, and very much so a fan of the driver of the number 4 car. It's always nice to see some people rooting for some of the racers in this series. Taglag, I believe, is someone new to iRacing as well, has a rookie license, so a newcomer to iRacing, certainly running strong in this race, finishing in the top 15, which for a newcomer running against some racers who run real-life race cars, that's a pretty good result at the end of the night. But Adam, I think we got some results to take a look at here from the second race of the evening.
Yep, I think we do. It looks like Ian Anderson going to come home first. A bit of a controversial finish there, but it wasn't between Ian Anderson and Miles Crabb, who comes home in second, with Michelle Squirick rounding out your podium top 3. Will Pierre coming home in fourth, with Kyle Robertson in fifth, Dylan Vose, Nolan Brommer, Chuck Labano, Kerry Anderson, and Andy Smith rounding out your top 10. Joshua Justice does come home in 11th, involved in a battle basically the entirety of the race, let's say, with Matt Thompson in 12th, Tyler Heron in 13th, Scott Russell in 14th, Nemo Taglag comes home in 15th, with Aaron Bray, Daniel Salmon, and Paul Ellis rounding out your top 18.
Looking through the rest of the drivers that we have classified from tonight's race, we have Mike Key finishing in 19th, Trent Kramer in 20th, Tom Wendt, who ended up being one of the most influential cars in this race as a result of that unfortunate and messy incident heading down into a roller coaster. He finishes down in 21st. Then we have Seth Spolman in 22nd, Edgar Sentinelli in 23rd, Wayne Buttermore 24th, Ken Estep in 25th, Brian Campbell going to be finishing this race in the 26th position. Joseph Tarantino in 27th. Casey Knight with a slightly askew brake pedal. She's going to be classified down in 28th. Corey Heffron down in 29th. Joaquin Effinger in 30th. And John A. Casey rounding out the 31 cars that are classified from this TCR race, the third of the season. It's Ian Anderson, though, taking that checkered flag to win this third race and breaking up the dominance from Jake Snedden. So I think, Adam, if you'd like to, we got some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area, one of them being Anderson. Would you like to do the honors and interview our race winner from tonight, or is there someone else that's piquing your interest?
No, I would like to do that. I think we'll go ahead and bring Ian Anderson right now. Ian, first of all, congratulations on the win. Second of all, did you think it was going to end like that?
Oh, it was man, I'm still like sweating and breathing heavy. I was hoping it was gonna end pretty smoothly, but man, I was staring at my rearview mirror most of the time, just trying to stay in front. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm breathing heavy for you right now, Ian, to be honest. I mean, it was an unbelievable race from start to finish for you. Obviously, Michelle Squirick was there for a while, had a bit of an off, but you could not just break away from the pack. There was always somebody. Miles Crabb, for instance, was sitting back in fourth place for most of the race, and then he showed up. I mean, there were no times for you to take a breath, and I know after a 40-minute race, the last thing you want to do is be talking to us instead of going and at least taking a shower. But how do you, in your mind, go through that whole race? You have to focus on your braking points, but you can't stop looking in the mirror.
Once there was about a half-second gap, then I was just telling myself, don't look in the rearview mirror. All it's going to do, it's going to make mistakes. So just once there was a half-second gap, then I just staring forward, just willpower, just don't look at the mirror.
Yeah, well,
just don't look at it.
Well, you did a great job, Ian. Congratulations, man. Obviously, we've got a few weeks here before the next one comes up with all of the Christmas and New Year's breaks coming in. But is there anybody you want to thank or shout out before we let you go?
Yeah, just thank the people that support us. SimMotion, they're local to us, and Speedy EFI is also a supporter, and my wife racing right next to me, the biggest supporter.
That is something that Ron mentioned at the beginning of this broadcast. So massive shout out to your wife, Ian. And I tried to convince my wife to buy a setup, but she didn't fall for it. But anyways, Ian, congratulations on your win tonight, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you. See you there.
That was Ian Anderson there in P1 overall. Well, first place. There isn't an overall in this one, Ron, but who you got?
Looking through at some of the drivers we have waiting in the interview waiting area, I think I am going to bring in Michelle Squire to have a chat with her about a really hard-fought TCR race and another victory in the Mazdas. So, Michelle, well done on a pretty well-driven night of racing action. First in the Mazdas, third in the TCRs. I want to ask you, though, about the TCR race that we just saw, because you're in the midst of a hornet's nest all throughout it.
Yeah, that was the entertaining one for sure. Yeah, basically, that was actually my first time doing some laps in TCR around here, so I was just thrilled to be on the podium and after qualifying, and then just tried to get myself stuck in, and I managed to see myself just stuck in behind Ian and partly just sitting in second. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll try to hold this and kind of see what I can make of it at the end. But fortunately, yeah, I still have a bit to learn in these TCR cars. A bit more of a rally cross. It felt like towards the end until I eventually did run off. But yeah.
Well, these TCR race cars, I have a feeling, are just about as difficult to drive and kind of difficult to wrap your brain around compared to the Mazdas as you could possibly get on the iRacing platform. They're two cars kind of under the same blanket in terms of different types of race cars, but at the same time, it's like an apples to broccoli comparison. So I want to ask you about that, how difficult it is going from the Mazdas into the TCRs in the span of just a couple of seconds.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I just took the checkered flag in the Mazda race, and then I'm already out there qualifying in the TCR race, scrambling to get a quali setup together. But yeah, it's definitely a huge mind shift. But you know, as I'm going through there, fighting up the front, smiles on my face the entire time. So yeah.
I will briefly ask you a question about the Mazda race we saw you dominate earlier on. By what lap were you left checking your email?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I was trying to build up as much of a gap as I could. I had no idea kind of what had happened with Miles at the start. I was talking with him a little bit in the cool down room here. And apparently he seemed like he got some damage and some toe out, which caused a spin there. I didn't know if I crowded him in oak tree that led to the spin, but looks like it was probably just due to some damage. And then from then on, it was just kind of, all right, cruise control. And yeah, I tried to get that 20-second gap. I don't know if I quite got it before the end of the race, but I set myself a little challenge.
I think at the end of the day, I think it was 19.7 or something like that. So
dang, so close.
I mean, if you want to, we could round it up. I mean, in my schooling days, trust me, there were many times in which I wanted the teacher to round up some of my grades just so I'd be able to be a bit more proud of myself. But so either way, 19.7 seconds, so an absolutely ridiculous gap. Shown a whole lot of pace all throughout this season and hopefully going to continue that when the year 2025 kicks off, because we won't be seeing this series return until then. So before we let you go and celebrate and get started with this holiday break here from the Ray Esports Club Racing League, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Oh yeah, so first I want to give a shout out to Casey. Moved in with me for the end of the holidays. And then obviously you all here at Slow Motion Broadcasting, Ray's Esports, and SimMotion for putting on everything with the series. It's really awesome. I have a blast running it. I look forward to it every week. and then obviously real life sponsors, rspeed.net and Formidable Racing Development.
I gotta say, Formidable Racing Development may have been a bit of a tongue twister for me earlier on in this show, so very thankful that you got the shout out for me there as well. But Michelle, thank you so much for joining us in the commentary booth. Well done on the win in the Mazdas, and excited to see you back out on the racetrack wherever it is in the not too far off future. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And that right there was Michelle Squirick. I think I may have given Adam a little bit of a conniption there with that line to end off that interview. So, Adam, I will let you interview Miles Pratt.
Yeah, absolutely. And Miles, I want to let you know right now that we try to keep it a PG show. A lot of the times it doesn't go that way, but let's talk about the Miata race first, Miles. Let's talk about your night overall. It's been, you've had a bit of bad luck, let's say.
Yeah, that was kind of both ends of the spectrum, I guess. No, in the Miata race, I don't know what happened. I may have run out of talent just trying to hang it around the outside of Michelle, but I got hit twice kind of going into turn one, and when I turned into South Bend, the car did something funky, and I just kind of crossed it up and locked it down, and Michelle got the run to the inside, and then when I turned really hard to the right, or when I went to throttle, actually, it just looped itself instantly. So, I don't know, when I can actually hang around at VIR, I kind of like this track, and I'm kind of good at it. And then, yeah, at the end of the TCR race, just lap traffic, could have been handled better. I could have backed out of it because he was in deep and was going to fly off the racetrack anyway, but as soon as they hit the brake, I was just hoping something wasn't going to happen, and I took that calculated risk to stay in the lead. But I had no business hanging on to Ian. He was the class of the field by far, and he had his braking points down. I might have had a little something if I could have gotten him to defend the wrong side of the road into I have no idea what the start of the roller coaster is called. The annoying turn at the end of the back straight.
Well, a T13, I think, is the name, probably is what you're thinking of. There's actually not a start. Roller coaster I think, starts on T14. So you're right there, T13.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just there were 4 people up at the front all having different styles. Like Michelle was really pushing. Will was hanging it out about as much as Ian was, but Ian was nailing braking. Will was nailing acceleration, and I was just along for the ride with my little high downforce setup, trying to make it 40 minutes without spinning. And yeah, I'm not too upset. I do not like the TCR cars. Give me rear-wheel drive, big horsepower, and small tires any day.
We talked about that a little earlier in this broadcast, and Ron asked me what my favorite looking TCR car was, and I told Ron, basically, I own a 1972 El Camino, so none of them. I like big horsepower rear-wheel drive cars, Miles. But the one thing I do want to ask you, especially about this TCR race, we're watching the replay right now, you were just kind of hanging around there as people were making mistakes. You were moving up. Was there, I know you said that Ian was quick, but at any point were you thinking, I can win this race?
Yeah, I mean, I fancy myself pretty decent on a last lap. Not dive bomb, but just if I can learn a driver and put them in a position they don't want to be, I feel like I'm decent at that. Like I said, I was not going to outbrake them and stay on the track. But I think I had a run. To be honest, if there's any place I could have scared them enough side by side to get ahead, it would have been through the snake. I could get a run on them. I had a little bit better shot out of, I think it's left hook or whichever one, T4. Yeah. So it was, if I could have done that, because I was really trying to save the front tires. I had a lot of rear brake in it. I really wasn't shifting the first and spinning the front tires. So yeah, there was a plan of attack to make a lunge, but he was by far and away the class of the field.
Yeah, absolutely, Miles. Well, I'm going to leave you with congratulations on sticking around with Ian, because he was definitely quick. I think the tire saving thing definitely came in at the end of the race. You may have been a little bit quicker, even with the damage. You started to close him down. If you would have had another 5 minutes, you would have had him. But you know what? That's, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. But before I let you go, is there anybody you want to shout out?
Yeah, thank y'all for broadcasting. Hi, Mom, if you're still watching. Hi, Jessica. I can hear you. I know you're still watching. And everybody for tuning in and watching. And thank you, Stevie, for putting this on. And thank you, SimMotion, for sponsoring it. So, thank y'all.
Absolutely, Miles. Thank you so much for putting on one of the better shows that we saw tonight. And we hope to talk to you soon.
Thank y'all. We'll be back whenever the series comes back, which I guess will be in the new year.
It will be. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
Yep, Merry Christmas.
That was Miles Crab there. Second place, wanted first place. Ron just couldn't quite get it.
Yeah, he was oh so close. I think if that encounter with the lap car didn't happen, he would have been a surefire pick for that victory. But either way, it's Ian Anderson taking the checkered flag in the TCRs. That was Michelle Squirick taking the win overall in the Mazdas. A fantastic night of racing action here to bring 2024 for the Ray Esports world to a close. We still got some action with the Weekend Warriors, though.
Exactly. I was going to say, there's still some Ray Esports action coming up. It's just not the Club Racing League. Ron, I think I can get to it, but yes, there is some action coming up here on Saturday, actually. We've got some Formula V racing, and then on Sunday, we've got the FFs and the SRFs coming back before Christmas time actually hits. We will get to those very soon. But Ron, before we get to the end of this, man, I just want to give you a shout out. Joshua Wilkie, Stevie Ray, all the people that have been around here for the past couple days, dealing with some stuff that we've been dealing with over here at Slow Motion Broadcasting. I want to thank you all for your support and your trying to think of a word. I think steadfastness is a word I want to use here, but it probably isn't the right word. But your composure after everything that's gone on, and I hope that everything moves in the correct direction now, and we will get some places. We'll get some great places here within the next year, 2 years, 10 years down the road.
Gonna hit the ground running here. This is going to be a whole lot of stuff to look forward to and a whole lot of stuff to reflect back on at the end of this broadcast. The year 2024, an interesting one in the Ray Esports world, whether it be with the Tuesday night series or the Wednesday night one. I have been a part of just about every single one of them this year. Seen a whole lot of fantastic racing action across all the action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, and some stuff on a different broadcaster that we will not mention by name, but it was brilliant covering this series. And I'll tell you what, folks, we've still got the action from this series running from kicking off with the action in January, running all the way through to the second week of April. So believe me, folks, the action is not going to be ending just about yet. I will say one thing before we wrap up the show, a quick little personal note to mention. This is my final ever broadcast, I believe, unless some sort of random broadcast pops up where I'm covering some Vietnamese go-karters league on a different broadcasting company. This is going to be my last ever broadcast as a teenager. I'm going to be turning 20 this upcoming Friday. So yippee to me. Yippee to all the drivers putting on a really good show here from the third race from group number 1. But I think with all that taken care of, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, Adam Thompson joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie doing a fantastic job working on the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your night, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not-too-distant future.